Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, depending on where you are joining us from. It's a real pleasure to be moderating today's closing session of the CTBTO Youth Group Research Fellowship, which we have been running since September this year with the Center for Energy and Security Studies in the Russian Federation, thanks to the generous support from the European Union. I'm Maria Chepurina, External Relations Officer at the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty Organization and the coordinator of the CTBTO Youth Group Task Force. Today, as we have a truly international audience watching us live, I would like to say a few words about the CTBTO Youth Group itself. Next January, the group will mark its 6th anniversary. And over this period, it has become a vibrant platform promoting young people's engagement in nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament, as well as strongly advocating for the universalization and entry into force of the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. Today, it brings together over 1,200 members from 117 countries. And this diversity is also fully reflected by the 26 research fellows who have been part of this half-a-year program and who are joining us today, as they represent 6 of the 8 non-signatory Annex II states. Today's session marks the end of the fellowship lecture series, and it is very special. Special because we're joined today by United Nations Under Secretary General and High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, Izumi Nakamitsu, and CTBTO Executive Secretary Robert Floyd, who is actually joining us directly from Norway, where he is on an official visit. Under Secretary General, Executive Secretary, thank you so much for your time and also for your commitment to engaging the next generation of global decision makers, making the CTBT entry into force, as Dr. Floyd once highlighted, a multi-generational activity. Today's event will enable us to hear directly from several of our young experts their suggestions as to how to achieve a nuclear test-free world. Their ideas are innovative and ambitious, and as Ms. Nakamitsu once said, they do seem to understand that they hold, as the next generation, both tremendous power and tremendous responsibility. After we have heard from our researchers, I will invite the Executive Secretary and High Representative for Disarmament Affairs to share their remarks, which will be followed by a Q&A session with the audience. Before I pass on the floor to CENESS Director Anton Khlopkov, a few words about the ground rules for the meeting. First of all, our webinar is open to public, so feel free to tweet as much as you like. Please also use the Q&A function to type your questions in the chat, making sure you send them to all participants. As we genuinely want to hear from you, time allowing, we will be able to take some questions, including some questions live directly from the CYG attendees of this event. Now it is my great pleasure to pass on the floor to CENESS Director Anton Khlopkov, with whom we have been running the CYG Research Fellowship. Anton, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria, and dear Ms. Nakamitsu, dear Dr. Floyd. Thank you very much for joining this session today. We appreciate your time and your cooperation very much. I have no doubt that investment in the next generation of non-proliferation and disarmament specialists is as timely as ever, because we are currently facing numerous challenges in these areas. I am therefore delighted that at their recent meeting in Paris, the P5 states decided to launch a pilot project to develop a young professionals network of P5 academics. Let us recall that, as Maria already mentioned, CTBTO led the way in this regard 5 years ago when it established the CTBTO youth group. For CENESS, it is a great honor and pleasure to work together with CTBTO youth group on the research fellowship program. Looking into interim results of that program, I would like to highlight its three key features: diversity, passion, and mutual respect. As Maria already mentioned, the program involves 25 fellows from 21 states, as well as CENESS and CTBTO Preparatory Commission interns. Some of the participants are nuclear engineers, some are specialists in international relations, and others are future political scientists. In my view, such diversity is an important component of the program success. The fellows striving for new knowledge and professional opportunities is very encouraging. Many of the program participants from different time zones join the online sessions in the early hours of the morning or late at night. Indeed, thanks to their passion, some of them found a way to join even when a reliable internet connection was an issue due to domestic political developments in their countries. Joint research and networking are a central part of the research fellowship program. Mutual respect is a critical pillar of engagement between the participants. I was greatly encouraged when, on one occasion, in response to our comment on draft paper, a participant said, "Sounds reasonable with me, but I have to coordinate this change with my co-author fellows." I am pleased to note that in recent weeks, some of the fellows have received professional offers from relevant organizations, including those which are based in Vienna. I'm sure that it will help them to develop their careers in the area of non-proliferation. And I hope that this program help them to get those new professional offers. I also know that some of the fellows of the program are now thinking about where they can apply their professional knowledge, including knowledge obtained through our program. I wish them good luck, which always comes in useful in such situation. And I would like to reiterate that CENESS is always ready to support you with advice if necessary. For our part, Dr. Floyd, we at CENESS would be glad to continue work together on this program next year, taking into account the experience and lessons we are now learning. Last but not least, dear UN Undersecretary General and High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, dear Ms. Nakamitsu, let me thank you for your continued openness to cooperation with think tanks and for your great attention to engaging the next generation of experts in non-proliferation and disarmament issues, including the opportunity to gain work experience at UNODA. And the research fellowship program we discussed right now is a good example how fruitful your efforts have been, because the CENESS coordinator of the program is Vladislav Chernovsky, my good colleague, who was given a wonderful opportunity to work at UN ODA as part of the UN internship program in 2020, even before he received his master's degree. And let me also take this opportunity to thank Vladislav for being the heart and the engine of the research fellowship program all these months. Thank you, and I now hand over back to Maria to continue this session.
Thank you very much, Anton, and thank you for your commitment to working with the next generation, and also once again for excellent cooperation on this project. We will now hear the research findings from 3 research groups of fellows, starting first of all with the representative from China, Chang Yu, who is currently a project officer at the Center for Humanitarian Dialogue in Geneva, who will be presenting on behalf of a multinational community composed of fellows from Kazakhstan and also the Republic of Korea on a very, very pertinent topic, the DPRK and the CTBT. What could come next after the moratorium? Chang, over to you.
Thank you, Maria. Dear Dr. Floyd, dear Ms. Nakamitsu and Mr. Hlopkov, dear organizers and CYG fellows, can you now see my slides being shared? I haven't seen it now, but it's my honor to present the work written by Hae-Yoon Kim, Zhania Mugadai, and myself to you today. We are from 3 different countries, but together we have written a piece on DPRK and the CTBT, specifically on how to move forward with the CTBT process in the context of a DPRK moratorium on nuclear tests. I will keep speaking while waiting for our colleague to put up my PPT. Our paper starts with a summary of the recent diplomatic events that led to the DPRK moratorium. Then the paper looks into the case of Kazakhstan's Semipalatinsk nuclear test site and analyzes why and how the experience of Semipalatinsk can be applied to the DPRK Pongari test site. Finally, with the context of the moratorium, we offer several recommendations that can be accepted by both the DPRK and the international community to move forward with the CTBT process. I will just talk without the slides then for now to save our precious time. Our first finding is that the opportunities to re-energize the dynamics of talking with the DPRK are rare. This is because since the Hanoi summit collapsed, no significant progress has been made in nuclear negotiations with DPRK. And on top of that, the COVID-19 pandemic led to the country's shutdown, making it even harder for the stakeholders to negotiate with Pyongyang. Our second finding is that the DPRK moratorium presents a window of opportunity to push forward the CTBT process. We say so because the CTBT can help bridge both sides of the stalemate. On the DPRK side, CTBT could be a natural next step for its moratorium policy. On the international community side, the CTBT could be a technical or less political topic for re-engaging with the DPRK. Our third finding is that Kazakhstan's dismantlement of Semipalatinsk shows that a successful dismantlement needs foreign aid in a phased manner. The Semipalatinsk dismantlement was a gradual process, with its first stage stopping the nuclear test, second stage halting the uranium enrichment programs, and the third stage dismantling infrastructure. For both the second and the third stages, the international community, specifically Russia and the US, through cooperative threat reduction program, provided necessary technical and financial aid. So bearing these findings in mind, we propose 3 recommendations. First, the international community should make it very clear that the DPRK's signing of the CTBT counts as one of the reasons for the international stakeholders to consider relaxing sanctions in the future. This makes sense because what the DPRK wants the most is sanctions relaxation, and the proposed recommendation serves as a midway solution for the DPRK and the international community. It could incentivize the DPRK by showing that signing the CTBT will help Pyongyang with sanctions relaxation. But it also demonstrates that the international stakeholders still hold firm standards by saying that the sanctions are not going to be lifted so easily. Our second policy recommendation is that the international community should encourage the DPRK to vote in favor of United Nations General Assembly or UNGA resolutions on the CTBT. This is implementable because, first of all, the DPRK has already halted their nuclear tests, so its policy is in line with the CTBT. Secondly, UNGA resolutions are not legally binding. Voting in favor would not force the DPRK to sign the treaty immediately. In fact, Pakistan, being a non-signatory to the CTBT, has also been voting in favor of UNGA resolutions on the CTBT for many years. Our last policy recommendation is that the CTBTO should consider inviting the DPRK for CTBTO trainings and workshops. Each year, CTBT runs training and workshops on topics such as seismic data analysis, infrasound, and waveform processing. Many of these technologies can be used to detect natural events. In recent years, DPRK leadership has emphasized in many occasions that they are eager to address the insufficient capacity of natural disaster prevention and relief. So the CTBTO trainings can be a great attraction to the DPRK. It can also serve as a good confidence-building measure. We hope that these policy recommendations can help the CTBT process move forward and also help shape positive dynamics between the DPRK and the international community. But we also need to move fast before the DPRK reverts its moratorium, which is still a possibility. With that, I conclude my presentation. Arigato, spasiba, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Chiang, and thank you for the clarity of your presentation with some really good implementable recommendations, which have allowed us to follow it very well, even without being able to watch the PowerPoint, which, as I have just been told, is being live streamed, but for a certain reason, we're not able to see it in this session on the screen. I would now like to invite Inna Rodina from the Russian Federation, who is an intern at CENESS and also training specialist at Rosatom Academy, to present to us the research findings of her group, composed of experts both from the region and from outside of it, including from Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and also Ireland, on the CTBT and the Middle East, a long road to a nuclear test-free region. Inna, over to you.
Thank you, Maria. Dear Mrs. Nakamitsu and Dr. Floyd, dear all, I am honored to present research fellowship paper prepared jointly by me and my colleagues from Egypt, Ireland, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. In this paper, we analyzed both internal and external factors influencing the positions of 3 Annex II states of the Middle East, which have signed but not ratified the CTBT, namely Egypt, Iran, and Israel, as well as 2 other states of the region which have not signed the CTBT, Saudi Arabia and Syria. The 5 mentioned countries are mostly state parties to the key non-proliferation treaties, and they express support towards the CTBT. Although proliferation challenges in the region hamper their signing and ratifying the treaty, they underline the importance of the treaty's entry into force for the Middle East. Despite its acknowledgement of importance of the CTBT's principles and objectives, Egypt links progress in disarmament, establishment in WMD-free zone in the Middle East, and ratification of the CTBT. Iran consistently expresses its support towards the CTBT, though Tehran sees several challenges on the way to ratify the treaty. First of all, Israeli non-participation in the NPT and concerns regarding possible misuse of IMS stations on Iranian territory. Israel is one more Annex II state which has signed but not ratified the CTBT. Among the Israeli concerns, fulfillment of the treaty's obligation by other Middle Eastern states and the possibility to lose a strategic advantage, and also its unwillingness to admit foreign experts to its nuclear facilities. While Israeli ratification is hardly achievable in the current political and security environment, it could be an impetus for other countries to sign and/or ratify the CTBT. Saudi's decision to sign the CTBT depends on the regional nuclear security domain status, considering developments with Iran's and Israel's nuclear programs. Given Saudi ambitions to lead the regional initiatives and develop the peaceful uses of nuclear energy, the country could benefit by promoting the CTBT regionally. In the UN General Assembly vote on the CTBT in 1996, Syria abstained, criticizing the treaty for its perceived inability to effectively bring about disarmament in nuclear weapon states, the lack of guarantees against the threat of use of nuclear weapons, and expressing its discontent with Israel's nuclear program. Today, despite the complexity of the ongoing conflict in Syria affects the country's readiness to discuss the non-proliferation issues, it is essential to involve Syria in the dialogue on the CTBT. With an understanding of the domestic and regional conditions which influence CTBT dynamics in the Middle East, there is a range of potential steps to strengthen engagement with the CTBT and its objectives through three broad categories: awareness and advocacy, cooperation and capacity building, policy and promotion. These steps should contain a variety of measures, including Track 2 and Track 1.5 dialogue on CTBT issues with possibilities for Track 1 dialogue, increased engagement from young professionals from the Middle East through the CTBTO Youth Group, CTBTO Youth Young Professional Network, and Middle East Next Generation of Arms Control Specialists Network. It is also region-specific digital campaigns to educate people about the risks of nuclear testing, educational non-proliferation programs which cover the CTBT, including fellowships and dual degree programs between the states of the region. Also, there are some specific recommendations for the CTBTO itself, in particular, more active cooperation with regional organizations, including League of Arab States, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and Gulf Cooperation Council, and facilitation of more active participation of the Middle Eastern states in Article 14 conferences. The full list of the recommendations is available in our research paper. Although the CTBT is not resolved to the complex challenges in the region, it is an essential part of a larger framework of interlinked and mutually reinforcing mechanisms to promote transparency, accountability, and security for the region as a whole. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Inna. Very interesting. I would now like to invite our last speaker, Aparna Yoshi from the New Delhi University, who is a student there, to share the research findings of her research group that was composed from representatives of India and Pakistan. And what I have heard from the group, it has been a confidence building measure in itself, making this research. To present to us on the topic of India-Pakistan engagement on the CTBT, challenges and opportunities. Aparna.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Maria. Dear Ms. Nakamitsu and Dr. Floyd, dear all, I am honored to present our CYG-CENESS Research Fellowship paper. The paper was prepared jointly by me and my colleagues Rizwan Asghar and Sufyan Ullah from Pakistan and Pranav Satyanath from India. Next slide, please. First of all, I would like to outline the main challenges that stand in the way of India-Pakistan engagement on the CTBT that we have identified. There is a stagnation in bilateral cooperation between India and Pakistan, which has put a stop to adoption of further confidence-building measures. Countries like US and China have significant influence over regional dynamics. Actions influence which pursue narrow strategic interests over non-proliferation and disarmament agendas that have a potential to broaden the schism between India and Pakistan. Furthermore, right now, the CTBT is low on the list of priorities, for both of the governments. In India and Pakistan, which are in a state of strategic confrontation on a regional level. On the national level, India and Pakistan, there is a lack of public awareness when it comes to non-proliferation issues and CTBT in particular. Civil society and NGOs are not actively involved in the promotion of a nuclear test ban. Next slide, please. Now, let's have a look at the goals, achievement of which, in our opinion, would be beneficial in terms of India-Pakistan engagement on CTBT issues. It is important to engage and resume meaningful, comprehensive bilateral dialogue to resolve outstanding regional disputes and identify threats, between the two nations. Countries should strive to implement new confidence-building measures aimed at greater transparency and understanding of each other's security concerns. Awareness of CTBT-related issues should be increased, and well-informed public opinion in favor of the CTBT must be created in both countries to rally specialists and the general population around the idea of a complete ban on nuclear testing that serves the interests of both countries. The most important goal is preventing nuclear testing, which can be achieved through a conclusion of verifiable bilateral or regional test ban agreements. Next slide, please. Finally, let's go through some of the opportunities for engagement and practical recommendations that our team members have identified based on the aforementioned goals. Although arms control has struggled to establish a strong foothold in South Asia, the two states have cooperated on certain confidence-building measures to reduce the risk of nuclear warfare in the past. You can now see them on your screen. Next slide, please. The existing CBMs and Islamabad's proposal to New Delhi about simultaneous adherence to CTBT and converting unilateral moratoriums into a bilateral agreement offers avenues of bilateral cooperation between the two nuclear adversaries. India and Pakistan must initiate discussions at the semi-official level, namely Track 1.5 and Track 2 dialogues. This format will not only allow a more open exchange of views, but may also provide younger professionals an opportunity to interact and exchange ideas. Based on the tone of these discussions, both countries must take every initiative to move formal negotiations at the foreign secretary level and establish relevant working groups to discuss strategic stability and possible CBMs. One such measure could be the negotiation of an agreement to exchange seismic data from nuclear test sites of each other's territories. The expected outcome of such engagement is to better understand each side's concerns over nuclear testing, create greater levels of transparency, and foster scientific cooperation between the two countries on nuclear matters. A bilateral data exchange agreement could also act as a stepping stone to negotiate a more comprehensive regional or bilateral test ban. An important step would be to conclude a mutually verifiable bilateral test ban agreement. Such an agreement, for example, could involve India and Pakistan agreeing to install seismic monitoring stations inside each other's territories. with some provisions for on-site inspections. It is less preferable than a full ascension of the CTBT. However, a bilateral ban agreement would allow India and Pakistan to adhere to the principles of the spirit of the CTBT when avoiding some politically costly bargains. To conclude, in South Asia, the prospects of bilateral engagement remain limited due to the prevailing strategic instability and India's unwillingness to engage in bilateral arms control measures with Pakistan. Progress on CTBT may be pursued by raising mutual trust between the two nuclear rivals, addressing the unresolved disputes, and building regional strategic stability. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Aparna, and thank you once again to Inna and Chiang for your presentations on behalf of the research fellows. I would now like to give the virtual floor to the CTBTO Executive Secretary, Dr. Robert Floyd, who will share with us his vision for the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. Dr. Floyd, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Maria. Under-Secretary General Nakamitsu, CTBT Youth Group / CENESS Research Fellows, ladies and gentlemen, it sure is a pleasure for me to be back with you again today for this final session of the CTBTO CENESS Youth Group CTBTO CENESS Fellowship Program, and to hear your presentations from your work over the last 3 months. And a special thank you and congratulations to Chiang, Inna and Aparna for your presentations. Great job, guys. And I look forward to hearing more from you over the years. You know, what I really love is hearing the thoughts that come from the benefit of fresh eyes, the challenges presented to orthodoxy, and the innovative new ideas on how we can move forward. You've given me a lot to think about today, and I look forward to reading your papers in full detail when they become available. This to me just is so exciting to see what this fellowship program can produce. Chiang, I really liked your work on DPRK, you and your team, that is. This is not single efforts. Your work on DPRK and the CTBT, and linking the CTBT into sanctions relaxation, is certainly something that has been talked about. But I'd be very interested to read your paper in more detail to see exactly how you thought that could happen and how we could see that move forward. I would so love to see that. And I do think that does provide an opportunity, and let's see what can happen there. And when you mentioned about DPRK voting in favor of the UNGA resolution, I thought, why didn't I think of that? Yeah, it's obvious, but the power of that would be very strong to the international community, and is one step, a very achievable step, which could help move things forward. Your last recommendation about the CTBTO inviting DPRK into training and workshop events, that's a great idea. And I'll certainly be talking with my colleagues back in Vienna about that, and as to whether there is any problems or difficulties with being able to do that. Inna, your work and your team's work on the Middle East, yeah, it's tough, isn't it? But tough as it is, I liked the way that you couched, the recommendations, awareness and advocacy, the importance of track 2, track 1.5, and particularly your point that communications need to be regionally specific. It's certainly something in my really short time as Executive Secretary of the CTBTO that's become very apparent to me, is that global messaging only does so much. But regional and more targeted messaging and engagement is incredibly important. So, you're picking up on that same issue. And looking for avenues for cooperation and capacity building across the region, between states in the region, yes. and the whole area of policy and promotion. Let's bring it on. Aparna, what a great team you had. A great mixture of young minds from India and from Pakistan looking at this issue. And again, I really look forward to reading your paper, and so understanding in more detail what you and your team thought and how you weighed the different opportunities and how things could move forward. I really liked your idea of building on the existing confidence building measures as a basis for cooperation, and even that idea of exchanging data, just a step that builds confidence, ever more so in a helpful direction. A great idea. And then the mutually verifiable bilateral test ban. As you say, yes, less preferable than a global test ban, but something that can be thought about, something that we can really consider. If that is possible, is that a 4-step, before we see engagement in a comprehensive nuclear test ban treaty? I look forward to reading your analysis and thinking more on that. So to each of the teams, congratulations, great job, well done. And what I liked is that each of you did not shy away from coming up with bold recommendations. And one of the issues, and particularly for those that might be in some of these areas for a long time, is we spend a lot of time admiring problems and not solving them. Your presentations were characterized by recommendations to solve problems and not just admire them. So thank you, well done, and I look forward to your continued contribution into this important area, as we move forward. There's a couple of other things I want to say before I touch briefly on my sense of vision, and that is something like this research fellowship program just doesn't happen, by people thinking that's a great idea. It actually happens through some significant contributions of a number of people. And I want to do a special call out and thanks to Anton Khlopkov and CENESS and his team for their partnership with the CTBTO Youth Group Task Force. And in the task force, I mean, in particular, Maria Chepurina, who's our MC today. You guys have done a great job, to deliver this program, and I'm so appreciative. But I'm also deeply appreciative of the financial contribution that was made by the EU. That contribution, they are so committed to the next generation and to youth, has made this all possible. So I just want to acknowledge the EU's vision and support in this area. It's also a great honour to have with us today, live from the UN headquarters in New York, sounds like a CNN anchor, the UN High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, Izumi Nakamitsu. I so appreciate Izumi's strong advocacy and her tireless efforts to advance the globally critical non-proliferation and disarmament agenda. Thank you, Izumi. We owe you a deep debt of gratitude. And in particular, thank you for your personal engagement in promoting our common vision, a world free from nuclear testing as an essential condition for a world free from nuclear weapons. It's also very encouraging to note that the High Representative Nakamitsu's advocacy on disarmament issues is entirely consistent with the words of the UN Secretary General. In his recent landmark statement, Our Common Agenda, the Secretary General identified the risks posed by nuclear weapons and made strong appeal to the international community for a new era of multilateralism. He says we need to be selective in our choices. We need to assess whether the choices we make help to move us closer to a breakdown or to a breakthrough. Well, let me talk about a few breakthroughs in the context of the CTBT. The opening for signature of the CTBT 25 years ago was a breakthrough for the international community. With this step, the era of unrestrained nuclear testing was over. Since then, and during the past 25 years, 185 countries have signed this treaty and 170 have ratified it. There's only 11 states that remain outside the community of the CTBT state signatories. Another 15 are yet to ratify the treaty. Today, we're working in a very focused manner to secure the remaining signatures and ratifications, advancing with both the treaty's entry into force and its universalisation. We're working on multiple tracks. For instance, we closely work with governments, international and regional organisations, but also with parliamentarians, think tanks, universities and civil society, such as the CTBTO youth group community. All efforts to support our common goal are welcome, and each and every contribution is deeply appreciated. Your contributions today are yet another welcome contribution to this collective effort. So I thank you. You will be interested to know that since we last spoke in September, I had the opportunity to hear the reaffirmation of support for the treaty from a broad group of states, including during the UN Security Council briefing that I was involved in at the end of September. It was held to mark the 25th anniversary of the opening for signature of the CTBT. Also, as has been mentioned, on the 6th of December, UNGA adopted a resolution on the CTBT, endorsed by 182 states with only one vote against, DPRK. And thank you to the team that addressed that issue earlier. Buoyed by this support, and during the CTBT's 25th anniversary year, we aim for three things. First, to have the CTBT supporting states, almost universal, as the recent UNGA resolution shows, to resolutely share their common vision and goals of achieving a world without nuclear testing and establishing the CTBT verification regime. Secondly, we aim to secure further signatures and ratifications of the treaty particularly amongst the non-Annex II states. But we also want to see progress with the Annex II states. That is without a doubt. But thirdly, amongst the non-Annex II states, we want to see pathways that would allow for this treaty, to be ratified by more and more states. This is the most honouring thing that we could do in this anniversary year. The upcoming review conference of the parties of the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, the NPT, offers a platform for all of the states to reaffirm their strong commitment to the CTBT. The CTBT, with its unique verification regime, which is essential for achieving universal, non-discriminatory and verifiable nuclear disarmament, is something that nuclear weapon and non-nuclear weapon states alike can jointly declare its value and celebrate the successes thus far. I was also very pleased to hear the president of UNGA recently make a call for the CTBT ratification at the second conference on the establishment of a Middle East zone of free of nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction, in which the CTBTO did participate as an observer. Finally, to the CYG fellows and all CYG members, I'm counting on you, our next generation of nuclear disarmament leaders, to continue to labour towards the treaty's universalisation and its entry into force. You can play a vital role in enriching and informing the public debate on the CTBT. You can play a vital role in engaging with the youth in states that are yet to ratify the treaty. And you can play a vital role in coming alongside and encouraging and supporting those in governments that are responsible for treaty ratification processes in those states that are yet to ratify. Together we can do this. And I look forward to your questions and our discussion. Thank you so much, and congratulations to all the fellows. Back to you, Maria.
Thank you very much, Executive Secretary. And thank you especially for providing such a positive feedback on the fellows' work. The papers that they have prepared, all of them, because there were 9 research groups, will be actually published at the end of January. So you will receive a full version of their publication, and all of them would be able to present their work to the larger community. I would now like to invite United Nations Under-Secretary General and High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, Izumi Nakamitsu, to take the floor to share her remarks. And once again, Ms. Nakamitsu, as Dr. Floyd said, we owe you deep appreciation for joining us today at this closing session of the fellowship. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Floyd Robert.
That's
and,
better.
Yes. Khlopkov, of course, Anton, please, and Ms. Chepurina, ladies and gentlemen. I really wanted to thank you so very much, both CTBTO and CENESS, for giving me this opportunity to, see you and be a participant today. And hopefully, we will have interesting exchanges, shortly after my remarks. But I really wanted to say that, Anton, this is a really impressive and inspiring group. It has become one of the most respected youth groups amongst now many, fortunately, that exist in different issues, but this group has really become one of the most impressive ones. So congratulations. Anton's three keywords, diversity, passion, and mutual respect. This is something that I definitely do agree, and this is something that we all need, especially in the current context of the security environment deteriorating, and there are competitions and possible frictions emerging in front of our eyes. I think these three words probably are the key words for finding solutions to our problems and challenges. Now, I would like to also comment, I listened to these three presentations, and again, very thoughtful and fresh perspectives, and very concrete suggestions and recommendations. Congratulations to all of you. I also look forward to receiving, the details, and we will definitely look at them. I think we need more of these kinds of recommendations and studies, especially in disarmament and non-proliferation area. So I would like to just focus my short remarks on overall disarmament landscape and how, of course, CTBT fit into that overall architecture, if you will, and playing a really important role within it. And of course, some 75 years after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and more than 30 years after the end of the Cold War, it is indeed sad and disheartening to see that nuclear weapons continue to exist in large numbers, more than 13,000, able to destroy the human race and, of course, the planet itself many times over. Unfortunately, nuclear armed states continue to upgrade their arsenals and also seeking new ways to employ them while keeping them at the heart of their national security strategies. But while the circumstances surrounding disarmament, non-proliferation, arms control are definitely not trending in the right direction, I would say, the global norm against nuclear testing remains strong and one of the greatest achievements of the post-Cold War era. I think this is really a fact. Now, in addition to preventing large, lasting damage to environment, human health, of course, and vulnerable local communities that nuclear testing invariably brings, I think a ban on nuclear testing is one of the most useful tools to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. And then CTBT is obviously a critical element from that perspective in the global effort to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and promote, therefore, nuclear disarmament. Now, what is loosely called the global nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation architecture is comprised of a series of overlapping and complementary bilateral, multilateral, and also regional disarmament, arms control, and non-proliferation treaties. These, of course, include, for example, the so-called New START Treaty on strategic arsenal reductions between the United States and the Russian Federation, and nuclear weapon-free zones. I think this is very important, covering various regions. Central amongst these instruments is undoubtedly the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, or NPT. With its 3 pillars of disarmament, non-proliferation, and of course, peaceful uses of nuclear energy, this treaty, NPT, has been the cornerstone of the global nuclear non-proliferation regime since it entered into force in 1970, obviously long before you were all born. The treaty was extended then indefinitely in 1995, and the agreement to negotiate the CTBT was an essential element of that indefinite extension. And moreover, the CTBT's preamble recognizes that ending all nuclear weapon test explosions constitutes a meaningful step in the process to achieve nuclear disarmament. And it is also widely considered to be one of the most important effective measures under Article 6 of the NPT. Now, as you all know, NPT will hold its 10th review conference next month, 3 weeks from now, after multiple postponements due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It will provide, in our view, the best opportunity to bolster the norm against testing also. Any outcome from the conference should include an expression of strong support for the CTBT and the need to permanently ban all nuclear tests as an essential element of a world free of nuclear weapons. Now, the CTBT also complements and reinforces the status of nuclear weapon-free zones I mentioned earlier. These zones contain legal obligations to prohibit nuclear tests, and International Monitoring System, or IMS, operated by CTBTO, underpins the status of the zones through its constant 24/7 really monitoring. So too does the International Atomic Energy Agency, of course, or IAEA, entrusted as a nuclear inspectorate, if you will, not only for the NPT, but also for the 5 nuclear weapon-free zones. The IAEA undertakes verification and monitoring activities as per the safeguard agreements required for states parties to each of those zones. Now, while entry into force of the CTBT remains challenging, but I know Robert is going to fix all of that, I am heartened by the treaty's near universal status. The IMS is already 90% complete, I understand, and contributes immensely to capacity building also in developing countries. The CTBTO has also been active, very active, in seeking the wisdom of experienced policymakers and the vision of emerging young voices like yourselves through this group, a group of eminent persons and youth group, respectively. On the latter, I have already congratulated you, the 3 speakers also, for today's event. And it is really encouraging to see young people dedicate their energy, passion, intellectual passion also, to seeking new and innovative solutions to the decades-old problem of nuclear disarmament and proliferation. So, I mean, I think my generation, our generation have not been successful, but for sure your generation will be successful. I would like to conclude by, quoting the UN Secretary General. The Secretary General Guterres has said that in our current complex and fluid international environment, we need a new vision for disarmament, arms control, and non-proliferation. The one that takes into account developments such as really changed geopolitical realities, technological advances, very, very important, and also new domains of armed conflict, potential armed conflict, God forbid. Hearing from you today, I am assured once again that our young can make a valuable contribution to that vision, a new vision that we need. And therefore, not just that we need to listen to you, but also we need to work with you. We need to also create a space for you to start leading these fields in order for us to be able to create a safer and more secure world, and definitely the world that you will be leading. So thank you very much again for this opportunity, and I am looking forward to our exchanges. Back to you, Maria.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nakamitsu, for your unwavering support for the treaty and also for your commitment to working together with the emerging disarmament leaders and for your strong support to these initiatives. We have a few minutes to go before the closing of the event, so I would like to give the floor briefly to several fellows who have put their questions in the chat. We have Jeremy Faust and Ksenia Pernyavskaya. Please ask your questions, present yourself very briefly, and then I would invite our high-level speakers to answer these two questions. Jeremy, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you very much, Izumi Nakamitsu and Dr. Floyd. So I am Jeremy Faust. I'm a CYG Research Fellow, and I will soon be an attaché with the Holy See Permanent Observer Mission to the UN. My question is, among rising global tensions, what are your hopes for the upcoming 10th Review Conference of the Non-Proliferation Treaty? And how can the conference promote universality and entry into force of the CTBT? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy. Ksenia, over to you. Ksenia, we're unable, unfortunately, to hear you.
Do you hear me now?
Yep.
Thank you very much for unmuting. My name is Ksenia Bernavskaya. I'm education coordinator of the CTBTO youth group and also Kai's master student and currently CTBTO intern. And my question to both speakers, and thank you very much for your remarks, and thank you everyone, the fellows, for your presentations. So my question is, do you see possible concrete areas of cooperation for the CTBTO youth group and UN ODA Youth for Disarmament Initiative to promote CTBT and overall disarmament agenda? And are any joint initiatives maybe being discussed between you? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ksenia and Jeremy. I would now like to ask Ms. Nakamitsu to share her thoughts on those two questions, and then I'll pass on the floor to Dr. Floyd.
Yes, thank you. For the 10th Review Conference, as I said, I think any outcome that will be hopefully adopted by the 10th Review Conference, in our view, definitely should refer to and include issues related to CTBT. As we all agree that there is a very strong support for the test ban. I think how to reflect this in the outcome document will present a concrete opportunity for the CTBT's universalization to become a closer sort of a real possibility. And I'm also myself curious to know what Robert's strategies are. I know he has spoken to me about the approach that he would like to take in this regard. So I think it's definitely a very important opportunity coming up in January. The cooperation between our Youth for Disarmament and your group, CTBTO Youth Group, I don't know in detail if there is actually a joint initiative being discussed concretely, but absolutely, I think it will only make sense that these two groups work together. There are, of course, a lot of similarities. Our Youth for Disarmament goes beyond, of course, nuclear disarmament field, and it includes, for example, conventional weapons, small arms, light weapons issues, and how that links to peace building efforts on the ground, etc. But nuclear disarmament is, of course, an important area of their focus as well. So I will speak to the focal point for this initiative, and I know that there were some already communications. Indeed, I think in our initial sort of launch of this Youth for Disarmament initiatives, this group also was very much supportive of us. So I wanted to also thank you for that as well. But definitely let's work together.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nakamitsu. Executive Secretary, over to you.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you, Izumi, for your comments. Jeremy, your question about the 10th review conference and the opportunity to promote the CTBT, its universalization, its entry into force. Absolutely. Every time there is a NPT review conference, this is one of the issues that we seek to have as strong a language as possible. The prospects, to me, it depends on the atmospherics at the review conference, and that depends a little on the practicalities of how it is to be conducted and the impact that COVID may have on that. One of the issues is that the CTBT is something that all states can agree on. It's only a matter of then agreeing the words. It's not the concept. So that's why I think strong language on the CTBT should be able to be delivered. The biggest threat against something like this is different issues that some states may want to land in a final document. And if they hold a strong position that they will not agree a final document unless it says something, and that is something that a bunch of other states don't agree with, then we may not get a final document. I really hope that's not going to characterize the interactions in January in New York. I will be there for the first week and a half. I will be making a statement early in the meeting. We have some text that we've been circulating around, and there's a number of states that have put out papers with sample text supporting the CTBT, and a whole bunch of that text looks really good to me. So I remain optimistic. I hope that states will go with a flexible approach to how the final document might be drafted so we can capture some of this good stuff. The cooperation between the CTBTO Youth Group and UNODA Youth for Disarmament, of course, I'm sure that Maria will brief me on exactly what has gone on in the past next time we're in the office together. But I just make one comment. I think it is really important that each group focuses on its business. And as Izumi described, the Youth for Disarmament is a broader remit than the CTBTO Youth Group, although it overlaps. And that is great. And I'm glad that the Youth for Disarmament are working across that broader horizon. For the CTBTO Youth Group, it's also good to keep that focus. Our focus specifically on the CTBTO and entering into force. And I think that's where we should be seeing cooperation. It's not about competition. That competition is a pointless concept. We've got such a big task and a big challenge. We should all be going for it in as in as cooperative a manner as we possibly can to see greater success. So I look forward to cooperation that can happen as we step into the future. I look forward to hearing about the ideas that are already being explored between the two groups. Maria, I think we're almost out of time, so of course this is probably my last statement. I again just want to congratulate all of the fellows and congratulate CENESS and the CYG task force, for putting on a brilliant fellowship program. So thanks, guys, and all the best to you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Floyd, and thank you, Ms. Nakamitsu, for joining us today and also for sharing with us your action-oriented vision. Many thanks also to all the CYG research fellows who have been part of this program, to, of course, Anton Khlopkov, and to the listeners, to the numerous listeners who have been following us today. Before we close, I also want to say a special thank you to my CTBTO colleagues, including Loipa Sanchez-Lorenz and Sabine Bauer, for their advice throughout the fellowship, to the CTBTO PI section, especially Lenise and Sanam, to Michael Badalamante, and most importantly, to a key member of the CYG task force, Marius Yano, who is behind the scenes today, but who has been invaluable to the success of this program, alongside Ksenia, Camila, and Alice for their contribution. Together, I'm sure we're advancing the prohibition of nuclear testing, one webinar and one event at a time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Nakamitsu. Have a lovely day. Goodbye.